Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm. And if you guys remember, what we did in the last episode is that we have created our inventory. And as you can see as well, that on the inventory system, we have created, let me just do a couple of row back here just to show our list. We have our list here, and what I would like to do here today is to populate this information, or at least start to pass the variables through. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm gonna close everything here because I don't need those widgets at the moment. Right now we just set up what we call the base of our project. So everything has been set up properly, which is nice. And we now need to start to add the references. So if I illustrate it quickly here on Paint, what I would like to do today is that we have the inventory system, which is our package. And here you have the UI, everything that the players see, beautiful. We have the items and everything looks great. Now, to do all those operations here, the UI needs to be aware of our class right here, right? So it needs to know, let me just get this color. So it needs to know, it needs to talk with this object so information can flow and the UI can keep changing, So that's what we need to do here today. Is that we have to pass information to the UI and all sorts of things. So I would like to try to be this time more cleaner. In previous tutorials I tried to just add information, make it work. So let's try to make it a little bit more cleaner this time. So for that, what I am going to do here is that first I'm going to open up the inventory, which is where everything starts. All right. The first thing that we want to do here is that I would like to create a new graph, and I am going to call this UI, all right? And then within the UI, I'm going to just create here a custom event, and here I'm going to call this API, let's call open widget, right? Open widget, let's call here main. I think we're gonna call this start main widget, and then that's it. Because the widget is always available, it's just not displaying the information all the time. You don't want to create widgets all the time because it's kind of a little bit of a waste of resources when you do that. So you just want to make sure it is visible once, and then it doesn't display anymore. It hides, right? And in here, we're just going to go back to the graph. I'm just going to copy this data and paste it right here, right? So nothing crazy. I'm just going to put it right here. So we have create the base inventory widget. We add the widgets to the viewport, and then we set the game mode and UI to whatever it needs, which is great. And then we show the cursor. So this one, we need to abstract this. This needs to be abstracted a little bit. So I'm going to create here another event. And also all this stuff, guys, run on the client. So make sure it runs on the client. We're going to create here a custom event called API UI mode. And this is going to be added right here. And we're going to create another one, which is going to be called API game mode. And maybe what we can do here is just call UI game mode. And what I mean by this is that we get the main controller and set UI. That's fine, but what we want to do here is just that we want to hide the mouse, because when you play, you don't want to see the mouse all the time. Only when you're interacting with the UI. Here you can pass the widgets that you want to focus on. And here basically what we do is that we're going to comment saying control if the player is in the UI mode or game mode. So what we want with this, guys, is that every time you press a button, you open the inventory, everything happen, you just show up the menu and all, and then yeah. So that's fine. That's pretty good. So start the widgets. So this is the start the main inventory widget. And because this is a positive action, I'm just going to mark as green. And now the next thing that we got to do here, going to go back, we can just call this stuff. Yeah, that's it. We just want to load the inventory. So should everything work? Of course, the mouse, it doesn't show, but that's fine. We don't want the mouse at the moment. We just want the inventory. Right, so now let's pass the inventory BPC inventory reference to here, because our inventory needs to know the reference of this to do the actions he has to do, right? So to do that, we are going to open up the base inventory. And what we're going to do here is that we're going to create a new variable, and this is going to be called maybe you can just call inventory ref. And this is going to be the BPC inventory, right? So we're just going to make sure it's public, and you expose that on Spawn, compile and save this stuff, and that's everything that you need. So now if you refresh that, you can pass self, and that's it. That's all you got to do right now. Now we are passing the BPC inventory reference to the widget, so we can do stuff with it. We can, do anything that you want. When you delete, because all the actions, they come from the UI, and it needs to be passed to the component, so then it can execute things. Now, if I go back to the player inventory, which is everything right here, we don't need to worry about this anymore, and we don't need to do anything here. Now, what happened is that we have to pass this reference, let's say, to the parent widget. For example, here we have the inventory, right? So we need to pass this to here and that to this. So there's a couple of ways you can actually do this. I'm going to try to do in a little bit more clever without having to pass too much abstraction and things. So when you start the widget, let me see if that will work. So get parent, maybe I can try, get parent widget. So I can actually try to print the widget here. Let's see if that would work. The problem is that this method doesn't necessarily bring the right widget. It's just bringing the inventory canvas. So what we're going to have to do here is that we are going to have to create a reference to this base inventory widget. So we're going to call this parent widget, or in this case, base inventory widget. And this is going to be called BPC base BPC. Why is it no? Oh, sorry, not BPC, is WBP base inventory. So we always pass the right type, and it's going to be the object reference. Make sure that is exposed on Spawn and everything's good. Now, what we would like to do here is that we need to pass the reference of the widget, right? So basically, there is a problem here that we have to figure out, but I'm gonna basically just do, like, every time I'm just gonna display the name of the parent. So I'm just gonna do here with a delay, because I want to show that the problem that we're gonna face now in a sec. But if I press play now, so nothing should happen because I don't have the reference of the widget. How you fix this is very easy. You go back to your base inventory, and on the begin construct, you just get the inventory, and then you're gonna set the WBP, base inventory, right? And then you're gonna pass a reference of self. So in this case, here's gonna be self. The reason why I'm passing this parent is because the parent has the reference of the inventory. I don't want to pass, I just want to pass one thing. So now if I wait 2 seconds, I have the base inventory. The issue now is that if I'm just gonna call is valid, right? Now I'm just gonna basically do that. If it's valid, display. If it's not valid, we say maybe not valid or something. Now I press play. So it is valid, which is good. If I drag and drop, look at that. It is not. Oh yeah, it actually has a reference. Okay, I was expecting to not be valid, and I was expecting to have to give the reference again. But in this case, it looks like it kept, which is good, because the thing that I was expecting is that on the drop, we are removing from parent, and then we re-add the information. But what happened is that it keeps the information from the self widget. So it's fine. And if you guys remember here that as base drag and drop window, you get the self widget, right? This is passed, just to remind you guys, is here. So the this one is just this self widget. So the self widget. I'm just gonna rename this because I misspell. So basically it's passing the widget and already has the reference, which is fine. So anyway, this is kind of working, which is good. Let me just try to, why is that not working anymore? Move from parent. What did I change here again? So self widget. So I'm just gonna go back to the base inventory. On drop. I think I broke something. So self widget reference. So they say it doesn't have the reference. Maybe because I renamed that. So if I rename that, I have to go to the window, have to do, I think it's called the base operation. That's the one we're looking for. Now on the drag, there we go. Yes, refresh, put it here. Yes, that's the only issue sometimes that Unreal does this kind of stuff. But anyway, everything seems to be working fine, which is great. Exactly what we were looking for. Now let's just carry on with our population of items, right? Now on the inventory, I have the base, right? Inventory widget. What I'm probably gonna rename this, guys, to maybe, inventory widget, because inventory widget. Otherwise, I'll get confused with this. I think I'm gonna get confused when trying to rename this stuff. Now from here, we have interior access to the items, but we need now to decide if we're trying to display as a list, and if we are trying to display as a list. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna just probably drag and drop the item display here. So I'm just gonna copy those here. I'm just gonna drag and drop to the inventory. And then on the inventory, I'm going to create here a type, because this can get a little bit loose, I think. And we're going to have a type, a list or of a grid. Anyway, now that we have that information here, what we can do is that before we create a widget, we need to decide what type you are, right? So we're going to get here, we're going to get the inventory, let's say ref. And then in here, we can get the settings. And we can break this. Oh, not this. Get inventory. So we get the inventory stuff. We can break it here. And now we have the settings that we can also break. And here we have the mode. And we can do a switch case. And that switch case will be just if it's a grid or if it's a list, we can decide what to do. In this case, I'm not sure, to be honest, which one's the default that we left. So I'm just going to copy and paste here. And then we try to see which one it is. Hello, so it's a grid. Access, try to read. So it does eventually work. It's just that it doesn't have the information that we're looking for. This is because you need to make sure that you call this later on. So for now, we're just gonna actually let's do it properly. So let's create here a custom event call API. Let's go start start reload inventory, right? So what we want to do here is that this is going to be basically a method that we're going to be using to start or reload the inventory. And then what we can do here is that we can pass the inventory reference, right, to that guy here, which is fine. And now what we can do is on the basic inventory, instead of doing this on the start, right, on the event graph, we can just call that and then just pass self, and then we call the method. We're kind of doing the same thing, but the method will do, we will reload and get the data and do more with this. Anyway, that's fine. Really, really, really good. The reason why I don't want to do the grid first is because the grid's a little bit harder to do. It's just we need a little bit of more logic. So let's just change this to list for now, and then we can do the list. Now, so the list is, it's just displaying a list. It's quite, super easy to do. It's just gonna plug this one right here, right? For now, and then what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna search for the list. We're gonna add it here, and we're gonna delete all this information right here. This is gonna be called, I'm just gonna call this inventory content or something. Inventory content, or inventory list would be the best. But anyway, now what I would like to do is that every time when we start this, we should have the, for example, I'm gonna get the inventory widget, passing the widget, and this is gonna be WBP base inventory. And now from here, we're gonna get that, make sure it's public and exposed to spawn. And I know this part's a little bit boring. I don't like it as well. It's just it's creating variables and passing things. So really gets a little bit too much when you have to do all this stuff. But if you want to make things reusable, it's nice to do this way. Anyway, now we're gonna get the ref. We're gonna get the inventory. Get inventory, which is fine. Now we're gonna get, actually gonna break it down, and we're gonna do a for each on the items, right? And what happened is that for now, right, we're just gonna break this. We're gonna also do a break here, branch in this case. No, I'll break a branch. If it's full, we want to display the item, right? So if it's full, we would like to get the item list. And now what we can do is that we can create this widget here. So we're gonna basically create that widget. So create widget from here, which is the one that was selected. So if it's true, we add it right there. Now, one thing that we have to do here is that on this widget, I would like to add a couple of things. So the first thing that we need to add here, if you notice, we have a type, a structure, st item structure. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go to the graph. I'm going to go back here to the variables, and we're going to call this st item. This is going to be called st item, right? Just a normal item. And we're going to compile and save. We may need to get a slot, right? We may need a slot where is the item. So maybe it's just a slot, right? So maybe, you know what? I am going to pass the st slot because the slot has the ID of the loop. So maybe it'll be easy for us to do things like this. I'm not entirely sure yet. But anyway, so what happens, then we're going to break this stuff. We're going to get the item, also break this, right? And here we have a couple of information. So for example, now it's just a case of getting this, and we're just going to call here the API, the item slots. Do we have an API to this stuff? set, we do not have an API yet, so let's just go back to this here, right? What we can actually do right now is that we can create here for now, no, actually let's just pass the do we need the item slot? I'm just trying to think here what's the best. I mean, I'm gonna pass the whole, st dash item, and we pass the st item slot, the same thing, and then after we figure out if we need this, because I'm just thinking that for NPCs or maybe quest items, you don't necessarily have the item slot. Let's just do the st item, and I think will be the best way to do that. Let's change that type. Let's change the type. And we're gonna basically do like, if you don't have item slots, I mean that's a problem for the future. Let's figure out first the loading issue, and then we can focus on the future. Let's just break this for now. Let's make sure this is expose and spawn. Just to keep in mind, this is not the final. We don't know yet how this is gonna behave. But for now, I'm just doing like this. And here we're going to set the texture, right? And here we're just going to get the texture from the icon we're passing from, right? Which is good. So now what happened is that the item slot, it has the item reference, which I can go back here to the item slot list. And I can get, for example, the item slot here, right? And I can basically, set the item, or, I can maybe do even a better thing here. I can maybe create here a custom event called API load item. Sorry, API load item, right? And here we probably gonna need what item you like to load. In this case, we can even put this as a reference right there, right? Compile and save, and then we can go back here. And we call API load item, right? And then here is just the case that we pass the item right there. And the last thing we will need to do here is just that on the designer, we're just gonna get the item name, make sure it's a variable. We would like to set the color of this, because remember we have rare, epic, but for now let's just try to load this. So we're gonna get the item name. And we're gonna set text, I think, yes. Now, what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna create a literal string. The reason why I'm using a string is because I can append things. And here I'm gonna append. So I'm gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna break, I'm gonna pass the name. I'm gonna do space X and then press the pin. And here I'm gonna do the quantity. And that's pretty much everything that we need to do this. So if I go back to the list of inventory, I can refresh this node. Oh yeah, one thing we forgot to do here, of course, is that make sure this st item, or in this case st item slot, because it means the slot is expose on spawn. Make sure you expose and spawn, because now here, if I refresh nodes, it should be the item. And then I can pass the whole item right there. Now on the inventory list, which is our grid, all you have to do is just you need to add child, right? And then the child, of course, is this. And I think we got everything kind of right. So now what we are gonna do here is basically now we load the inventory, which basically this should be when you start the inventory. So we need to create like a key to show and hide the inventory, normally E, because otherwise you're always gonna have the items, right? So where is this thing complaining? On the branch. No. That's the wrong place. So non inventory ref. It's gonna be right here. So we got inventory ref. Oh yeah, yes. if we need to pass the inventory widget here. Compile and save. Okay. Now we need to test by getting the items, right? Of course, it's not going to work because we need to do the whole reloading thing. But for now, what we can do is that we can add a delay. Maybe something like 5 seconds. And now what we can do here, or maybe not. Maybe what we can do that. API reload widget. We're just trying to think. So we create a widget and then we add it to the viewport. And then here is when this thing started. So if I comment that stuff out, it won't work. Right? The information. Oh yeah, because of course that's fine. We're just gonna add a delay of 5 seconds. It's because the inventory window is always available. We need to fix that. We need to make sure it's on the fly. But we should load the apple, and look at that, guys. We have everything kind of working. You know, the way you can actually test this for real is that we're gonna add here. Let's search for the item. So we can maybe add the sword, and we can add like 2 or 3. I don't know. We can compile and save the stuff. So if I press play, and now I can get like the sword and all that stuff. I should have a sword and 2 apples. And as you can see, I have 2 swords, 1 apple, and then everything else, just display everything as we want. So this is the first step of our inventory. Now the things that we have to figure out and the challenges that we do is that we need to control when we want to open the inventory, when we want to close. We need to control things like when do we want to refresh this. We also have to control things like when you pass the mouse over, it displays like a context menu. We also need to do things like item splitting. For example, if I'm adding 2 swords and the mass stack per item is like 5, and if I'm adding, let's say 11, I have to add 3 slots, right? So all those kind of things you have to take in mind before you add. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna go slowly. So once again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next one.